If you're still struggling to get your hand moving after a stroke, you may be missing a key component. By the end of this video, you'll understand what you need, why you need it, and I'll show you 3 simple exercises to help you get it. Here's what most people don't realize. Hand recovery is not just about your hand. In the same way that getting arm movement back isn't just about the arm. And I've talked about this in other videos that you can check out if you want a more in-depth analysis. But there is a need for proximal stability in order to get distal mobility. We need stable, strong muscles in order to get finer, more complex movements further away from the body. And the same is true for hand recovery. The muscles that open and close your fingers actually start in the forearm, not in the hand. And just like with all of our muscles, they are controlled by the brain via complex pathways. After a stroke, it's common for high muscle tone, called hypertonicity, or spasticity to develop. And when that happens, the flexor muscles, those that curl the fingers and the wrist in, often overpower the weaker extensor muscles, which are those that help open up the hand and bend the wrist back. And if you think about this functionally, our flexors are typically stronger because we have a more functional need to grip things and less of a need to produce force when we extend our hand back. But when this high muscle tone develops, it can lead to stiffness, tightness, and functional trouble releasing objects out of your hand. So we can't miss this key component of addressing those muscles that move the wrist as well as cross the wrist to get our fingers moving as well. So with that knowledge, here are 3 simple exercises that you can do at home to help regain hand movement after your stroke. And the first is weight bearing through your hand. Now, this is a seemingly simple exercise, but it can do a lot of things for us. The first thing is if you experience spasticity or increased muscle tone, it can help to relax that. Now, this isn't a long-term solution, but it can help in the short term. One, if you're using this as a priming exercise to help get your body and your arm and your hand ready for other more complex, challenging exercises next, that reduced spasticity is going to give you a lot more bang for your buck when you go to do those more challenging movements. And the second thing is, even if you don't have a ton of movement, doing weight bearing essentially helps to kind of wake your brain up. It's trying to say, hey, that arm, that hand is still there. Let's try and work on remaking that brain-body connection. So how are we going to do weight bearing? Well, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can do it standing up, say at a table, some solid, sturdy surface that you can put all your weight down through. You want to try to get your arm as straight as you can. Try to get your hand as flat as you can on that surface with your fingers spread apart. Now, this isn't always possible depending on the level of movement, the level of spasticity that you have. You can also do this in a sitting position as long as you have enough room to lean over and really get that weight bearing down through your arm and into your hand. You want to be holding for between 30 to 90 seconds as long as you're not experiencing significant pain. This is really important because that prolonged stretch is going to help those muscles relax, and it's going to give that brain enough time to try and make those connections that, hey, that hand, that arm is still there and it's still trying to work. Exercise number 2 is wrist extension, being able to bend the wrist back. Now, you can also try to include finger extension in this exercise if you wish, but our primary focus is going to be at the wrist. When you have a stroke, like I briefly mentioned earlier, we often see that tightness, spasticity, hypertonicity, high muscle tone of the flexors bring that wrist and those fingers into a curled flexed position. Those weaker extensors don't really have a fighting chance. So we have to do what we can to really strengthen those up so that we can get out of that curled flexed position and open up our hand. So to do this exercise, I have a couple different modifications and progressions. So let me start with kind of our base level. This would be where you're hanging your hand off of the edge of a table and you're trying to bend that wrist back actively and then slowly lowering it back to the starting position. Now, if that's too difficult, you can keep your hand resting on a table, turned sideways with your pinky side down, and trying to bend your wrist backwards that way. This is taking out the effects of gravity, not completely, obviously, but helping to reduce them so that you're able to still get that movement without trying to fight against gravity as much. And our last exercise is to focus on object release. This is one of the hardest movements to get back after a stroke, which is where you're able to hold on and grasp something, but then able to open up your fingers and actually let it fall. Focusing on this exercise can directly carry over to more functional tasks. And this truly is one of the cornerstone movements to being able to then focus on more of that fine motor and dexterity. So to do this exercise, you can use your unaffected or stronger hand to put a lightweight object into your affected or weaker hand. The goal isn't necessarily to hold on to something, but rather to work on the release, bending the wrist back slightly, and then working on releasing those fingers, even if it's slow, so that you drop the item that's in your palm. And the thing is, you can start with larger, more lightweight items and work your way to either heavier items or smaller items like coins, pencils, etc., to work on more of that dexterity, fine motor, precision movement. And last but not least, let's talk about how many and how often you should do. Of course, always check with your doctor or therapist before starting any new exercise or therapy routine to make sure that it's right for you. But in my opinion, based on the evidence that is coming out more recently, start with as many repetitions as you can do, with as much intensity as you can give on a daily basis, as long as you're not working through pain or significant fatigue. But I know that you likely want a concrete number, so let's explore that. More and more research is showing that we need around 300 to 800 repetitions on a daily basis to really start to see those concrete neuroplastic changes happen in our brain. However, this doesn't mean that you have to do that indefinitely. In fact, in most of the studies that are showing benefits from this amount of daily repetitions, I would say on average, those studies took place over the course of 12 weeks or about 3 months. So it's not something that you have to do 300 repetitions every day forever. All of that to say, if you can only do 20 repetitions at a time, start with that 2 to 3 times a day so that you can build up your rep count and be as intense as possible during those repetitions. Leave me a comment and let me know what exercises or strategies have been most helpful for you to improve your hand movement after a stroke. And if you found this video helpful, please make sure to like it, subscribe, become a channel member by clicking the join button, or leave us a super thanks by clicking in the YouTube bar below. Of course, a huge thank you to all of the donors who make this nonprofit possible, with a special thank you to Ryan D, Modus Nova, and Joseph M, and our Empower tier on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.